Hiya, homie! We're waiting for some people to show up in the live chat to make this broadcast, well, really kick this broadcast off. Today, we are returning to the video that was published on Saturday, this past Saturday, but unfortunately, I had to take it down and republish it today. And today, it is Monday, April. I'm a whole month behind. It is April 29th, and I had to re upload this video, which is the bizarre brilliance of John and Garfield. Uh, I loved this video. I thought it was fine, but I had to republish it because it had an error that I took so long producing this video for everyone that I just couldn't leave that edit unfixed. And it was an area where I was talking with Jiggy, and Jiggy was not responding. So that was corrected today. Hopefully, some people get in here in the chat, and we can get this rolling. I am trying something new today. This is a whole different system than I usually use StreamYard, but right now I'm going straight through OBS. And the reason is because you can hear everything that I'm playing through the software a lot easier over here on OBS than when I have to reroute it through my computer. And, if I had some more assistance with technical stuff like that, I might be able to figure that out a lot easier. But the way things are, this is what you get. This is what you got. And I'm excited to share some creator commentary with y'all. So I don't really say that very often, y'all, but it sounds funny when I say it. So I guess, since nobody else is here right now, we'll get started. I will mention that I did start up a secondary channel for my own weirdness, a location to just house my weirdness, and I'm not really planning to advertise it much here, but if you want to find it, that's over at Cade H. Hawkins, and there is a comment in the live chat right now. Hiya from the other channel. Rightio, so let's get started. Homie, you already know that John's a total weirdo that can't seem to figure out life. A very relatable and all-around flawed dude. I did that. I said weirdo in this because I wanted to tie it back into your favorite cartoon weirdo. I like that a lot. Alright, let's back it up a little. So, in the last cartoon creator commentary, I mentioned that I hide Easter eggs here as the tape slides up, and this is no different. This is Garfield's house, or John's house, that we're zooming into later on in the episode. You're just seeing it right underneath the tape. And a few comments on this thumbnail real quick. So, I inserted that, I think that, this is called Swollen Garfield, or Swole Garfield. I have a figure of him from a toy company I can't remember the name of right now. Only one, U2s, that's right, U2s. They did a figure of Swole Garfield, very much the meme. And this is kind of a meme too. It's just sort of a video meme. And that's John and the Garfield dance. Um it's hard to explain, but it's later on in the episode. And so not only are these memes and instantly recognizable, but the reason I used them like this is because it's the bizarre brilliance of John and Garfield. So you have John and then you have Garfield, and in between them, what is love? I had to sing it because it sounded funny. All right. Homie, you already know that John's a total weirdo that can't seem to figure out life. A very relatable and all-around flawed dude. But his cat Garfield is even more flawed, always falling into nasty habits.
But isn't that just how it works?
True, but John's relentless love for Garfield, despite his flaws, actually completes him and makes him a better person.
The cat completes the man?
I always add that little bit of reverb echo effect on my voice whenever I'm trying to make something I say sort of have impact and be more memorable. So I hope that it's driven home in that. Let's make him a better person. Makes him a better person.
The cat completes the man?
Exactamundo, Brodito. Let's unpack this. I genuinely say exactamundo, brodito, to my friends all the time. Depth and explore the very reasoning that Garfield... A little bit of your favorite cartoon weirdo trivia. Makes John a better man. Pack this depth and explore the very reasoning that Garfield makes John a better man. I absolutely love the timing on that because Garfield becomes Swole Garfield as soon as it hits that makes John a better man. Unpack this depth and explore the very reasoning that Garfield makes John a better man.
Let's go back in time. We can just hit rewind. What a terrific notion. It's cartoon commotion.
Time and time again, Garfield brought John all the way to his breaking point. That is a green screen, or in this case, blue screen, green screen effect from YouTube. And I was looking for one that just sort of burned away. But unfortunately, I couldn't find one that was to where I didn't have to add two different green screen effects. And this software, Movavi, doesn't really do that. It did make a really interesting change here, though. Because it starts off blue burning, like the green burns, and then you switch it over to the blue. And it's hard, if you're not watching and you're just listening, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's basically the first effect here is a green screen. And then when it transitions, it's a blue screen. And that makes the green screen visible. So I had to make this transition very quick so that it wasn't very noticeable. And I love this scene so much. I wanted to shove it right up in front because it's hysterical. I mean, listen to this. To his breaking point.
Here, take my money and my credit cards and my wallet.
In the series Garfield and Friends, John was constantly putting... Oh, we do have a guest in the chat. It's... You know what? I'm having a hard time scrolling through this chat here, so let me... There we go. John Ellis, welcome to the chat, bro. John Ellis, the king of the Cartoon Commotion comment section, is, of course, the first and only person here right now. Thank you very much for being a part of this broadcast. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. John, I mentioned earlier I had to take down the original video. There was a major error I'm glad nobody caught. And I took that down and I republished it today. But your comment lives on in the archives of Cartoon Commotion, and your comment was excellent. We will touch on that in a little bit. John says, reminds me of that scene in the Muppet movie where the film melts. Yes, actually, you know what? I got to rewatch that. I got to rewatch that and see that again because I'm visualizing it right now. So, yeah, I love this green screen effect, but I wanted to throw in this scene here because it seems to be like a total meltdown moment for John, and it just shoving it right up here in front, it just made the most sense. Here, let me play that one more time. On all the way to his breaking point.
Here, take my money and my credit cards and my wallet.
In the series Garfield and Friends, John was constantly putting up with Garfield's bad behavior. John says, well, nothing wrong with polishing things up. We appreciate it. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate you. And attitude. Remember the episode Good Cat, Bad Cat? Garfield was seriously struggling with right and wrong. It was the whole shoulder angel, shoulder devil bit. It's a total... And I was listening to the audio-only version of this episode of the podcast over... Like, if you go to Spotify and stuff, you hear this part where it makes the transition. It's kind of goofy to hear it over there because you can't actually see this transition. But in like cartoon visuals, this is awesome. I mean, I love this transition. Struggling with right and wrong. It was the whole shoulder angel, shoulder devil bit. It's a total classic. But this... I was grateful that somebody did upload this episode somewhere. I think it was on YouTube. Might have been Internet Archive. It's really challenging to find the shoulder angel, shoulder devil bit in cartoons for some reason over on YouTube. So somebody better upload more of these because this is a cartoon staple. Shoulder angel, shoulder devil. All right, John is saying more. John Ellis says, Jim Davis stated once that John in some ways represents the part of himself that is vulnerable and completely aware of it. All right, hang on. I got to turn off my cell phone notifications here in the studio because It seems I'm getting text messages. Alright, that's okay. Just gotta shut that down. Alright, John also says, I always hear Kronk in my head now when any cartoon uses that gag. Me too, dude. Me too. I love Emperor's New Groove. And Kronk's New Groove, reasonably. I like every bit of Kronk, obviously. Kronk is hysterical. So yeah, I completely understand. Um, but yeah, other than that though, there really aren't a lot of clips of the Shoulder Angel, Shoulder Devil bit of cartoons on YouTube. And I was looking for a visual representation of this because it feels like if you don't have another example to back up what you're saying when you say this is a classic and a staple, like you just said, John, a classic, if you don't have other examples within those eras, like I wanted something specifically from the 80s, just like Garfield, um, but this is obviously much earlier. And, it still works. I'm glad that I at least have some sort of visual.
Around, we get to see Garfield's inner turmoil and overcoming his desires to misbehave for John. Unfortunately,
Just seeing the Shoulder Angel and Shoulder Devil fighting, like the Devil character really it reigned supreme in this conflict. It shot the angel out the window. There was no victory for the good for the majority of this episode. It is genuinely at the very end of this episode that good wins in, I guess it's what, it's true what they say. Good wins in the end.
turmoil and overcoming his desires to misbehave for John. Unfortunately, Garfield gave in to his terrible temptations and wound up tormenting John, Odie, and even the mailman all day long.
You didn't tamper with the power mower, did you?
I love that line because who asked I don't care. I don't care that it's a cartoon. Who asked their cat? You didn't tamper with the power mower, did you? And when I was listening to the audio only version of this episode, I started laughing. Like it just came, the laughter poured out of my lungs. Or poured I guess wouldn't work. The laughter boomed from my chest. I was rolling in laughter because of that scene. Because, listen.
You didn't tamper with the power mower, did you?
John just couldn't figure him out. This episode had John's most hysterical response to Garfield's antics ever recorded.
Every so often something gets into you and you do these things, and I don't know why.
Turns out,
and I don't know why.
during this episode, John was waiting for a package delivering a custom gift for Garfield, a mug with his name printed on it.
I'm not joking. While watching this episode, I'm just like, oh wow, that's good. That's really good. I think I rewatched it just before making this episode because I wanted to capture that feeling. I'm like, I know what I saw, and I want to make sure. I watched it with my friend too, and he saw what I was talking about. Definitely something that I'm glad that I wasn't the only one that caught that, but I don't think very many people talk about this episode, Good Cat, Bad Cat. I hardly ever hear about it outside of, this and there, outside of me bringing it up in conversation.
Often something gets into you and you do these things, and I don't know why.
Turns out, during this episode, John was waiting for a package delivering a custom gift for Garfield, a mug with his name printed on it. This brings the story full circle because the opening scene was Garfield drinking.
Full circle. You see the visual pun I did there? Circle, or I think that's ellipse, whatever they call that. The ellipse. Zoom into the house, and that there is the house visual that I put in the Easter egg underneath the VHS tape at the very beginning. Call back. And I'm actually doing a neat, let me see here. A neat effect. Okay, so iris out. Okay, John Ellis says iris out. Where am I getting ellipse from? ellipse. I think on this software it's just called like circle. Yeah, circle out. Not very creative, but hey, at least it's easily found because circle. Anyway, I'm doing the circle, the iris, and the cool thing is that this scene actually featured a transition also. It was a transition into the house. So my transition went into a transition which actually looks like to me like it was actually a part of the cartoon, the way it was done. But that's my circle and then their transition. I thought that was neat. So let me back it up just a hair, and you can witness that in all its stupendousness.
Full circle because the opening scene was Garfield drinking coffee. And
that was actually really hard. You would not believe it. It's actually really challenging to find the drinking and then sound, but that works perfectly here. John, make sure. Let me know. You can hear the audio from the software here, right? Just making sure because I can hear it, and I set this up through OBS so that everyone else can hear it also. But I just want to make sure. So let me know. Can you hear what's going on? Like it's like we can hear it or something like that. All right.
because the opening scene was Garfield drinking coffee and just expressing how much he loved.
John says yes, which is much easier to type than we can hear it. So I appreciate your efficiency. Thank you very much. And I like this. Like this shot here is just it's a static. No, it's actually a GIF of him drinking the coffee, but then it's like going down, and then we get a zoom out, and he picks up the coffee, and you get this like this is called a love sound, and I wanted sort of like that meme music for love, but it was just a little too long, so I'm like, well, what do I put in here? It has to sound kind of like almost like he's romancing the coffee cup, like he loves it so much. And luckily I found this weird sound effect to do that.
Coffee and just expressing how much he loves it. John
Right
very
there.
well knew that he loved coffee. He loves it. John very well knew that he loved coffee. So this was a very thoughtful gift.
But you're still my cat, and I'm still gonna give you the gift I ordered for you. Here.
You really got to zone in on that line there, homie. But
And I'm not just saying that. You really do have to zone in on that line.
Cat, and I'm still gonna give you the gift I ordered for you. Here.
you really got to zone in on that line there, homie. But you're still my cat. John is a better man for loving Garfield when Garfield chose to be practically unlovable.
Yeah, that's basically the tagline of the episode. Garfield makes John a better man because John chose to love Garfield even though he chose to be unlovable. It's a great tagline.
Due to Garfield's roughhousing with a package earlier, the mug shattered into dust. A strong reminder that bad does not equal good outcomes.
And right around here is where I was practicing with a lot of the overlay effects. I really like this like overlay Garfield where it's a little see-through, a little transparent, and then you still see him back here. So you get this sort of like a shamed visual on top of the actual story, and that way you're not just getting another static frame, you know?
Garfield's never allowed to really learn this lesson for very long because then the show wouldn't be that funny. But we do know that he isn't truly all that bad because in multiple episodes and in specials, Garfield does overcome his naughty side.
And see, like here, I'm rewinding, but I'm also telling a narrative. So you see, this visual is like the current episode, right? And then what happens is it glitches out, and you see the specials that I was talking about with the first Garfield video. And you see this like sort of static again, and it goes to the end of that episode, that special. But if you follow the frames, it's it's moving from left to right. So there's this like left is the start, like that's where we are. But then if we're going backwards in time, so this is going backwards in time, we can see that previously he's overcome that. He's overcome that sort of bad cat inside of him.
But we do know that he isn't truly all that bad because in multiple episodes and in specials, Garfield does overcome his naughty side in favor of the good. But in this case, Garfield messed up royally, and John still forgave him. Too true, Jiggy Dude. There is more to this than just forgiveness.
Alright, so I've got to pause it here because this clip right here, let me see if I can find the actual... No, it's actually gone. It's gone in the overlay. Oh, hang on a second. We got another comment from John Ellis. That's the thing I wish modern animated comedies would understand, is that having the lead character be a terrible person alone is not in itself funny. The character must still have a bit of pathos. Completely agree with you, John. Your insight into cartoons is something I appreciate greatly because sometimes it feels like, I'm watching these things and how come other people, it's like the people who can see this don't talk about it. We need to talk more about that. I think that'd be awesome. So again, I stopped right here because this scene with my avatar moving closer to the camera, this scene crashed the whole video. And what happened was when I rendered this video, when I saved it, everything to the right here and onward, everything was just this picture of me. And you could hear it, but you could only see me doing that weird face and holding my arms out to my right and your left. It was awkward, to say that. I was majorly frustrated. I recorded it. I think I shared it to a more private channel, like one that wasn't so public. I just wanted to have like that on record, like this major disaster occurred, and I was able to overcome it by rendering this video separately and dropping it into the software here with like the whole older video. So yeah, it was basically like shoving a pre-rendered or pre-made video into another larger video and making it all work. It was crazy. John Ellis says, be relatable in some way, have something viewers can love. Completely agree. Garfield has many lovable aspects, and you kind of, like, these situations that I share in this episode highlight some of that, but they also highlight how his personality makes John a better character. And we're getting into that.
The love that John has for his cat doesn't end here, homie.
John Ellis says videoception. Yeah, the whole ordeal with the... Oh my goodness.
Let's fast forward all the way to the very last Garfield special, Garfield Gets a Life. Yeah, that is an excellent point, Jiggy. This special totally could have been called John Arbuckle Gets a Life.
And right there is where we have our issue. Now, this text overlay thing, I thought this worked perfectly. This was a funny gag. But right about here is the reason that I had to take this episode down and re-upload it today. Because for whatever reason, Jiggy was just inaudible here. You could not hear what Jiggy had to say in this clip right here.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, Jiggy.
And let me tell you, for audio-only people, that was really confusing. Because if you don't know who Jiggy is and you don't hear Jiggy talking, then me just suddenly saying, "Hey, Jiggy, that's a good idea." It's like, nobody knows what I'm like. What? Nobody knows what I'm saying. So this is the reason right here that I had to take this episode down today and re-upload it. And that's not the worst thing ever. I don't hate the fact that I had to re-upload it, but man, does it stink when the original video got a ton of traction for the channel. It did very well. It got new subscribers. I returned to the channel from this side project I've got going on, and I'm just like, that is awesome. I'm so glad that the channel is growing, and it partially due to this piece of art that just goes on and lives on my channel. I'm thrilled for that. But all of that progress is basically null and void. It's like the video that I have uploaded now has 0 views, 0 new subscribers. They didn't come for that video, they came for the old video, so... But anywho, I am glad that the video has been fixed and it's been re-uploaded, and like John said, that, you know, I'm tweaking things, making... What did you say, John? You said, nothing wrong with polishing things up. We appreciate it. So I'm trying to focus on that. Thank you very much, John.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, Jiggy. This special totally could have been called John Arbuckle Gets a Life, but obviously that doesn't really have the same commercial potential. You dig?
So there's actually 2 gags here. So I had to find a Garfield commercial from around the same time as the episode. Oh, this one's a little bit pre-episode. This specific commercial was from the, I think, 83? Or it was 82. Might have been 82. It was just about Garfield Gets a Life era. And then obviously, you know, the famous kid, Brent at the computer with the thumbs up. And I found somebody like vocals on Upbeat to represent that. I thought that was hysterical. I could be wrong. Depends on what you guys think, but I liked it. I thought it added a little bit of personality, and I kept it in there.
Obviously, that doesn't really have the same commercial potential. You dig?
Okay. Hey, isn't that special with John's weird dance scene?
Well, yeah, but it's really more about the story than that dance scene, dude.
Oh, it's a little cringy to say the least.
Sure, but that's only a moment. A little...
This was actually really challenging to do with YouTube's copyright system. So you're only allowed to use 7 clips. Just 7-second clips. So what I did was I cut in screenshots and I added motion to keep the flow going. And then I added some static effects and stuff, so that way it wasn't just pure footage. It's not unaltered by any means. There's a lot of filters on here and stuff, and sometimes I've added like effects. But let me just tell you, I couldn't leave this out because, again, had a lot of character and made the video way more entertaining.
Hey, isn't that special with John's weird dance scene?
Well, yeah, but it's really more about the story than that dance scene.
John Ellis says, "Oh man, growing up as a kid in the 80s, I remember the excitement of going to the mall and seeing a massive display of stuffed animals, Snoopy, Garfield, Opus, the Penguin. It was a shrine." Oh, the mall. I miss the mall. Malls are scary now. Let's go back in time. Alright, continue.
Dude.
Oh, it's a little cringy to say the least.
Sure, but that's only a moment, a little blip in the whole deal.
But that dude's got the moves.
Ah, dude, we get it. Now, to really mix it up, we gotta flip the script on this deal.
But that dude's got the moves.
Ah, dude, we get it. Now, to really mix it up, we gotta flip the script on this whole story. Up till now, we've been talking so...
Did you like that, John? I added this little, it's supposed to be a green screen effect, but I have it over just the black screen, so you sort of have, like, pure static that just glitches into the next scene. And Garfield's looking all like, I'm innocent.
Flip the script on this whole story. Up till now, we've been talking solely about how Garfield's misbehaved, and that's a real struggle. But this special was all about how Garfield went along with...
And this scene here is the last scene of the Good Cat, Bad Cat episode. So this is basically the final bit of that episode. Now we're cutting into the next part of the story. John Ellis says, yes, that is a great screen grab. Are you talking about Garfield? Yeah, that's perfect. This is something you could send to someone when you're trying to look, I'm innocent. I didn't do nothing. Not me.
Struggle, but this special was all about how Garfield went along with John in search of a social life. Garfield got the book on how to make friends off the shelf in the living room and followed John all over town as he followed its instructions. But picking up on the art form of charisma isn't exactly something you could just read and learn.
And I said that knowing that you can read and learn a lot, okay? It's not to say that you could not learn charisma from a book, but how much could you learn, really, if you don't go out and live? Because charisma is, or attitude, behavior, how we behave and act around people, like that is not something you read and know. That is something you live and see and do. So, I mean, it's almost something that you could learn a little bit better on video or from an instructor. But if you read, like I kind of laugh a little bit at, like, what was that? How to influence people, how to make friends and influence people. I think it's a book. And it's like I've never been interested in reading that sort of thing because it seems like something you don't read and know. It's just so this was kind of a jab at that, but it was also kind of like just emphasizing how John couldn't do that. John couldn't read and know how to be charismatic. And it's also, later on in the story, I explained that John had to be more of himself, and he had to learn to remember to be his true self. And not just what he's learning to be, not just what he's reading to be or who he's being taught to be, but to be himself around other people. Because, I mean, if you convince people to like you based on someone else's teaching, they're learning to like the person that you've been taught to be, not who you really are. So there's that too. I mean, maybe you're really struggling with a social life, but if you're reading about it, you're not being more social. You're learning to be someone else. John Ellis says the book How Not to Write a Novel is the only self-help book I've ever enjoyed. Yeah, I mean, so like, I have books like the Oxford Handbook of Media Psychology and Media Entertainment, and some books on scripting and writing for television and stuff, and I try to believe me, I try to read everything, but I don't. But everything I've read, I apply, and I don't think I've just never been inclined to read a self-help book that's like how to be like famous, how to get subscribers, how to be, like that kind of thing, because like it always just seems like they're teaching you how to be them, and you're going to have to learn differently. You're going to have to learn how to grow what you want to, you have to how to grow your business and how to be a better person yourself. How to be a better version of you. You can't really learn how to be someone else. And they're teaching you from their point of view. They're teaching you how to be them. It's a little off track here, but it relates because of the book.
You could just read and learn. John figured that out pretty quickly. He almost gave
I
up.
love that scene. Like, this is a good screen grab here too, John. Check this out. Shoving your head through the romance section, and this woman just like, oh my goodness, get out of here.
That out pretty quickly.
And the fact that he maintains that face too, like she's screaming right now, like, just how do you maintain that face?
Earn. John figured that out pretty quickly. He almost gave up entirely until he heard an ad on the television for the Lorenzo School for the Personality Impaired.
There's help for you at the Lorenzo School for the Personality Impaired.
I wonder if they could help me.
And that's when he
I loved making this shot right here. Look at this. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the timeline here because this is epic. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Okay. So what we have here is the fade into the couch scene. This is a static image. And then we have the ad, which is animated. And then I took the audio from the ad and layered it underneath this because in the original special, Garfield Gets a Life, this was just them talking on the couch, but it just sounds perfect here, like this. And then the music, which is called Disco Food All Good from All Good Folks, Disco Food, it has this little kick pickup thing right here, and it's timed perfectly with this shot. So as soon as that hits, it transitions, it goes black, and then you hit that like cash register swoosh thing going on, and the video resumes. Check this. Let's watch it one more time and see if you pick up on all that I just said. And if you don't, it's an editor thing. It's fine. It's so cool. It's so cool.
He heard an ad on the television for the Lorenzo School for the Personality Impaired.
There's help for you at the Lorenzo School for the Personality Impaired.
I wonder if they could help me.
And that's when he decided to
Did you hear it? Did you see it? Like, first of all, I say Lorenzo School for the Personality Impaired, and then boom, he says it. And then John asks the question, and then boom, slid right back into, oh, this is so awesome. I love how this scene turned out so much. Oh my goodness. It's just one shot. It's just one shot of a major hole, but it makes me happy that I made it. Isn't that righteous? That is rad to the max.
ad on the television for the Lorenzo School for the
When you
Personality
can feel like
Impaired.
just happy
There's
that
help
you
for
made
you at the
something.
Lorenzo School for the Personality Impaired.
I wonder if they could help me.
And that's when he decided to give it one final shot. It was time for professional help. I mean, if you could even really call this guy
Oh,
a
sorry, I was
professional. It's
moving
no shot. It was time for professional help. I mean, if you could even really call this guy a professional. It seemed like he was also struggling with his own personality. Well, John learned something in class, all right.
I like to use this quack duck thing whenever something silly is said, like sort of like confirming what I'm thinking.
I mean, if you could even really call this guy a professional. It seemed like he was also struggling with his own personality. Well, John learned something.
I was going to say a whole bunch more about this guy, this Lorenzo. I chose not to because I felt like it would go on for a while and be kind of like a mockery sort of thing, and it's not really what I'm doing here, so I just decided to keep it at this.
Personality. Well, John learned something in class, all right. He learned that he was so busy getting wrapped up in all of what other people thought he...
And you'll notice that, like, in the episode, or sorry, the special, Mona mentioned that she saw him earlier on the beach, and here she is on the beach with the other girls. And there she is in the classroom. But she's funny because she doesn't actually say that she was the same person or that he was the same person. She acts like he was a totally different person than this guy.
Busy getting wrapped up in all of what other people thought he should be and what he is, that he wasn't really being himself. He learned this when he found someone else that was going through the same sort of thing, a woman by the name of Mona, and they really hit it off. John Arbuckle meeting someone like him was just too good to be true. Unfortunately, that is true, Jiggy Dude. It was too good to be true. It did not last. It took a little bit, but as soon as she started sneezing and we discovered that she had a severe...
Okay, I could not leave this at just like a female sneeze, and I think I actually got no, I got a male sneeze, but I made it even deeper. I know I did that. Yep, I added a low pitch. Dude, I could not leave it at just a basic little sneeze. I even shook the camera. Watch.
Started sneezing, and we discovered that she had a severe cat allergy. As soon as she started sneezing, and we discovered that she had a severe cat allergy, it all clicked.
There were two scenes in this episode with sneezing, so I made sure that both scenes had a very interesting sneeze. This one, super deep, manly, shakes the whole camera.
It's sneezing, and we just
And I believe the second sneeze was Garfield, and I made that like super high pitched. Oh, John says nice vibro effect. Thank you.
discovered that she had a severe cat
Yeah, actually, I
allergy.
think I added even like a trumpet. I don't know where the trumpet went, but you can hear it.
Started sneezing, and
There
we
it is. It's
discovered
there.
that she had a severe cat allergy, it all clicked. John gave some serious thought to this issue, suggesting that she take medicine for her allergies, but she explained that nothing really works for her. In major desperation, he even tossed out the idea.
Oh, John says it did go better than his date with Kimmy, the woman raised by wolves. I forgot that episode. Man. Now I'm going to be digging for that.
Idea of shaving his cat.
What if I shaved my cat? Hey, oh,
Garfield
hi.
wasn't
Just one moment. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I had to take care of something real quick.
too into that idea at all. But still, John is a desperate, love-hungry dude who wasn't ready to let go of such a fantastic relationship that hadn't even begun yet.
We could really have been something, you and me.
And though it meant losing the potential love of his life, he still chose Garfield over her, which surprised even Garfield.
It really
This
did.
love story wasn't really about the romance that could have been with him and Mona. It was about the bond between John and Garfield that was already there. I know what you're thinking. That about covers it, right? What else is there?
Oh, wow, I was thinking that.
Ah, good. That means the course I took in advanced mind reading techniques was worth it after all. No. We're not through just yet. We've got a whole other episode to revisit, an episode that told us that there's an upside to Garfield's mischief for John. Episode 4's segment called Nothing to Sneeze At was the classic tale
And that
of
scene
Garfield.
actually was from the start of Nothing to Sneeze At, right? Here. Where John was thinking that Garfield's allergies could set him up with a date at the vet. He was not willing to get in the car, and that ended up making him it ended up flinging him into the trash.
An episode that told us that there's an upside to Garfield's mischief for John. Episode 4's segment called Nothing to Sneeze At was the classic tale of Garfield's allergies getting him a trip to the vet. And of course, this was a
And that was the sneeze, but that wasn't the same sneeze I was referring to earlier. And so that was much more mild. But I needed the sound effect there just so you could get a representation of what I was talking about.
tale of Garfield's allergies getting him a trip to the vet. And of course, this was a thrill for John because he could again ask Liz, the vet, out on a date. Liz, who had it with all of the petty begging from John, finally agreed to go out with him. For probably the first time in the history of forever, everything felt like it was going pretty smoothly for John. Except for the fact that Garfield and his
I should mention it in this commentary because I didn't mention it in the episode. The reason that Garfield was sneezing at all was actually the jacket that John was wearing. It had some weird wool blend, something, whatever. All right, John says, rereading the early appearances of Liz recently was an interesting experience. Oh, well, actually, I was reading some of those myself, and I I kind of understand what you're talking about because it well, even in in these early episodes of Garfield, she was very like cold. um anyway,
Forever, everything felt like it was going pretty smoothly for John, except for the fact that Garfield and his sneezing schnauzer came along with him.
and there's the high-pitched sneeze. It matches the pop yarn flying everywhere perfectly.
Schnauzer came along with him. He was being
Sneezing
practically
schnauzer.
unbearable, making this date a complete catastrophe.
I had to drop that pun sometime.
Liz was
John says, I remembered her as always being deadpan and snarky, but there were a few times she softened. Okay. Rosales Comics says, hey, just checking in. Hey, man, how you doing? So glad to see you again. We're going over Garfield and Friends, and we're watching, it's the latest episode of Cartoon Commotion. I uploaded it today. It's technically a re-upload of Saturday's episode. There was a little glitch. I mentioned it earlier in the stream.
Schnauzer came along with him. He was being practically unbearable, making this date a complete catastrophe.
And again, I have to mention, I had to say it eventually.
Complete catastrophe. Liz was out and John was depressed. She bailed. She ditched him. He rightfully called Garfield out for the whole deal, but then Liz came back.
Now, in retrospect, I was thinking like I could have put the audio from Liz here, but I don't know. I think I covered this pretty well, and I rather leave it the way it is with the emotional build-up of the music that you're hearing or you're about to hear, than reinsert Liz's audio. So I kept it the way it was.
Then Liz came back. Well, apparently she was ultra stoked that he loves his cat as much as he does. I'm honestly
John Ellis says, a cataclysm? Rosales Comics says, never pass up a pun. I'd have to agree with you on that one. I couldn't pass it up. Specifically in this instance, I feel like I don't like to repeat myself, so I'm probably not going to use that pun again. But, Garfield, it makes it pretty easy. Oh, maybe I'll use it in a Thundercats video.
Liz came back. Well, apparently she was ultra stoked that he loves his cat as much as he does. I'm honestly surprised that she didn't pick up on this sooner. She's a veterinarian. Why did you not make this connection?
And, okay, so I had to say that for personality's sake, because it was funny. And I'm glad that John Ellis, in the comments section, pointed out that she probably didn't notice it because prior to this, he was kind of like throwing himself at her. And that totally makes sense, dude. It just totally makes sense because she wouldn't have noticed how much he loves his cat if the majority of the time that she's around him, he's throwing himself at her and just like making himself super like obnoxious. So yeah, kind of it does make sense. So I guess this encounter allowed her to see it for the first time, and that's probably where she started to kind of fall for him, or be at least like she endured it or allowed it. Oh, Rosales Comics says using it in a Thundercats video would be perfect. Awesome. Yeah, I think this encounter was probably what got her to see that John is more lovable. John Ellis says, yeah, John only rarely showed his genuine self to her. The few times he did, she liked it. Yeah, and I see in this episode, this video is actually like a representation of that, because this episode, like, I'm not talking about the Cartoon Commotion episode. I'm talking about the episode of Garfield. This episode, Nothing to Sneeze At, is basically like her introduction to John's personality outside of just the vet interactions. John says the Thanksgiving special was another turning point. I would agree with you there. I would say that it was less loving towards Garfield in that per se, but definitely another moment where she got to see him. I'd say that out of the two circumstances, that Nothing to Sneeze At was probably a greater like love of his cat situation than Thanksgiving, though Garfield obviously takes advantage of the Thanksgiving situation because it's Thanksgiving. Oh, John said everything that could go wrong does, but in the end, his generosity and genuine warmth win her over. Totally. That is why I think this episode is such a great representation of John, like his personality showing through his love of Garfield. So let's rewind to that real quick.
I'm honestly surprised that she didn't pick up on this sooner. She's a veterinarian. Why did you not make this connection? Garfield's behavior, Garfield being present in John's life no matter where he is the reason that Liz even bothered to give him another shot. John's character shows us to look for the good in other people. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone's always good, but we'd probably all be a lot better off if we didn't stick with that negative point of view.
All right, I gotta pause and jump in here because what I am doing with this ending is I'm explaining that much like his love for his cat Garfield, we could not lead with a negative point of view. John is a kind man, and she recognizes that. Good notes, John Ellis, as always.
We've got to be strong enough to chill out and cut out the bad vibes, able to see others in a more positive light. And with that, we can see better outcomes. Like Liz here. She came back for John's heart. And more specifically, she came back because John loves Garfield. Hey, homie, you new in the neighborhood? I'm Kate, your favorite cartoon weirdo, and this is my pig, Jiggy. The pig that did...
Had to give my pig an encore one more time, Jiggy.
Jiggy. The pig that digs the jig. Here on Cartoon Commotion, it's our mission to rewind, relive, and reflect with you on the greatness that was 80s and 90s cartoons.
And what I like to do here at the ending is just kind of show off whatever scenes I thought were really great that I couldn't use so much in the actual story. I think that really helps set up this little outro. You get to see screenshots of all the things that I couldn't highlight so much, but I loved, and so I threw in there at the end. Ba-doop.
It's the jig. Here on Cartoon Commotion, it's our mission to rewind, relive, and reflect with you on the greatness that was 80s and 90s cartoons, flipping the script for a new perspective in your life today. If you dug this episode, we had 2 other Garfield episodes now. One in particular focused on how the earlier specials were more dramatic and dark, and that oddly enough, that wasn't such a bad thing. You might want to check that one out next. Otherwise, keep it locked in, homie, and keep it unreal, because there's more where that came from.
And that's where you would get the next episode. All right, so if there's no comments or questions, that is it for the night. Thank you so much for being here. That is, well, say that for the night, but if you are catching the replay, thank you so much for being here also. We are brought to you by the fine folks at the Cereal Box Network. This is Cartoon Commotion, where we rewind, relive, and reflect on the 80s and 90s cartoons that made our childhoods awesome. Keep it unreal. Keep it locked, because as I said in the video, there is more where that came from. We'll see you on the next one.